Buonasera, Picciotti. I'm Mimo Quattararo. Tonight, he walks you into Chicago in the roaring years, when a young Al Capone built himself a working empire out of forbidden drink. Winter on the lake. Wind, clean and mean. He sets the clock in 1920, South Side Chicago, Levee District, Cold Stone and hot cash. Prohibition signs go up, and thirst climbs down every throat. Bars turn off the taps, but the basements never sleep. The city learns a new prayer, UA, made of rye and sugar and a man's quiet fear. They come in trains, steam and smoke. Sicilians from Castellamare, Naples boys, Calabrese toughs with quick hands and quick eyes, Irish with fists, Poles with shoulders, Jews with ledgers that never forget. Everyone chasing $1.50 of respect. City Hall smiles wide, Figiu, when the envelope lands. Around that time, he says calmly, there was Big Jim Colosimo, a local king with soft shoes. Silk shirts, good cologne, dancers on the floor, politicians in the booth. He liked music and steady money from girls and dice. He hated risk, and he hated the dry law. Johnny Torrio arrives from New York with quiet eyes and a head for numbers. He brings a kid from Brooklyn, paisano with the scar he tries to hide. Alphonse Capone. They called him Al, never the other name to his face. Capone clocks in at the Four Deuces. Tiny joint, big nerve. 2222 South Wabash. A den with bells. Girls upstairs. A phone that never stops. Torrio teaches him lines and limits and who to pay. Capone learns fast, keeps his hat low, shakes hands like an alderman. He makes the rounds with Jake Guzik, soft voice and hard books. They move clean liquor from Windsor, raw spirit from farm sheds, beer from back rooms that never see the sun. Colosimo says no to bootleg. Too messy, too hot. A hot day in 1920. The flower petals cover the tables at his restaurant. A man walks in while the place keeps its music. A shot cuts the song, and Big Jim sleeps forever on the floor. People whisper that Frankie Yale took the ride from Brooklyn for the old friends. Nobody puts it in writing, Amone. Omerta has worked more than a bank. Torrio steps up, steady and neat. He keeps the streets calm and the cops paid. He tells Capone, you smile at priests and aldermen, you eat with both hands, and you never back into a corner. Capone pulls Cicero into the game, a suburb with fat pockets and weak guards. They set up at the Hawthorne Inn, a hotel with bad wallpaper and good cash flow. He gets to know the town clerk, the cops, the soda shop where ballots sleep. Election day, 1924. Sun white and raw. Capone sends boys with big shoulders and straw hats. They stand by polling doors. No shouting. Just the quiet lesson of a heavy hand. Some voters turn around. Some voters go in and think long. A newspaper man takes a beating, and a judge gets nervous in his robe. Later, a hearse rolls down a side street, and the message rides with it. Cicero is theirs now, safe as a fee. He ran his days round the saints, small saints, big saints. Back room in the Four Deuces, a candled icon of San Michele, wings painted with old shine. A couple of paisa prick a finger and let it drip, a prayer in dialect, and a vow with the mouth closed tight. No written rules, but the hands speak and the eyes accept. A scapular hangs under the shirt. A red horn rests in the pocket. No hats on beds. Never lay knives crosswise. Never talk on the wire. Jake Guzit brings envelopes to City Hall. Lobby door, same hour. He shakes the hand of an alderman who always eats oysters. Guzit does not carry a gun, only a little book in his head. He remembers birthdays. He remembers widows. He remembers who takes their whiskey neat. This was how the South Side ran, Mamma Mia. Polite and firm. And the money went out on Thursday. Capone liked good clothes. Dark suits, pocket watch, shine shoes, white pocket square, perfumed hair that sat neat as a ledger. He took off his jacket to eat, always. He never sat with his back to the door, never twice in the same spot. He kept a rosary in the nightstand and a cornicello tied in the drawer handle. He cut his bread with the left hand and made the sign of the cross with the right. He told the boys, "You never swear in front of the women." They ate on Sundays. Tomato gravy, long simmer. He liked shells with ricotta, sausage with fennel, hot peppers on the side, crusty bread on the chair. He poured wine into juice glasses and kept one for the saint. He tipped the bread across the bowl and remembered Brooklyn for a second. He called his mother on the phone and used his good voice. The business spread like water in a cracked floor. Bottles and milk crates, trucks with sawdust hides. The driver from Bridgeport lost a wheel and a case of whiskey rolled down an alley. Kids chased the bottles and laughing men paid them nickels for what they caught. Capone sent someone to the family with a Smithfield ham and cash for a new wheel. He wanted movement, not noise. Northside boys watched every truck. Hard eyes, light coats. Dino Banyan ran his flower shop on North State with clean hands and a dirty ledger. He sang in church and shook down breweries while counting roses. He had the big smile that never reached the knuckles. He had friends in every funeral and his fingers in every keg. O'Banion sells a brewery to Torrio and Capone, and the agents hit the doors. Torrio catches a stretch and eats cold beans in a cell. The old man keeps calm, but he takes it personal. Then someone invites O'Banion to his own flowers. Morning light, 3 men, a handshake that clamps, and a quick run of shots. The petunias look away, and the buckets tilt. O'Banion falls by his own stems, and the north side loses its singer. War comes fast. Engines rev, bullets talk. Jaime Weiss feels the loss and wants Kenosha steel in someone's ribs. Vincent Drucci takes his hat and goes hunting around Greektown. The Jenner brothers from Little Italy, with sharp suits and sharper brothers, make their own moonshines and throw it at everyone. One Jenner meets the sidewalk, then another, and the last one prays short. It rolls from door to door and from church to parlor. Torrio leaves a saloon and meets a sedan. The doors open, the men take positions, and the shots walk through air. Torrio eats it in the stomach and the neck, and the world goes slow. In the hospital, under white lights, he looks older than St. Joseph on the wall. He heals enough to speak, and he tells Capone, "Take it. I am done." He buys a ticket and boards a ship and leaves the lake behind. Capone takes the chair at Hawthorne. He is 26, with a scar and a plan. He tells both sides to sit down. He tells the city to breathe. He sends money to a hospital. He gives toys to the little ones at Christmas. He shakes the hand of Big Bill Thompson, a mayor who loves flags and parades. He gives reporters a show and a quote, and no names after that. One night at the Hawthorne Inn, the night sings with bullets. Cars circle like angry bees, and the walls learn the taste of lead. Capone ducks behind the bar, with Frank Rio pulling him by the collar. He stays down until Rio says move, and moves. When the dust settles, he checks his men first, then the walls, then his hat. He tells the press he feels fine, and he puts on a new tie. Next morning, he eats eggs and tells Guzit to buy the florist across the street. Anecdote, Paisa, about a tailor. Small shop, back room. A man comes in, jacket loose, a shoulder stitch that lets the iron rest inside without print. The tailor gets an extra 100 and tells his wife to light a candle. Capone passes the dough like it was salt. People knew the rule. Service got paid, and silence got blessed. Another day, a priest knocks at the door. Young face, steady voice, He says there is a boy in little hell with a busted ear who can't see a doctor. Capone sends a car, and the boy gets new shoes and a white coat looking at him. The priest leaves with a wrapped salami and a handshake that means respect. A reporter finds out and gets told to print something else. Capone traveled to the lake with his men. They sat in a boat with engines low. They watched lanterns across the water. Canadian friends with good cargo and thin smiles. Men in heavy coats passed lines from boat to boat and never looked up. A federal agent watched from shore and wrote down numbers no one would read for a year. Money stacked in Cicero, and the beer lines never cooled. Unione Siciliana sat at tables, dues, speeches. Mike Merlo keeps the peace with a handshake and a funeral voice. He dies in 1924, and the room loses its brakes. Tony Lombardo follows and takes Capone's side. The Northsiders see red, and the streets learn new names for pain. They shoot Lombardo near the loop and keep moving. Capone made his way through. He had Jack McGurn, quick hands, golf club muscles, soft hat and steady stare. He had Tony Accardo, kid with a driver's seat and a future heavy like lead. He had Frank Nitti, thin face, calm steps, a man who liked windows and paper more than noise. He had Albert Anselmi and John Scalisi for a while. And then he had doubts about both. Doubts get men killed in this business. Mini story from a diner on Canal Street. Cheap coffee, good eggs. Capone leaves a bill on the table and the owner follows him to say it's too much. He tells the owner to buy new cups and never run a tab for a cop. Owner nods and says a Hail Mary as the door closes. 30 years later, that owner still speaks in a low voice. Another mini story from an alley behind a Polish bakery. Dough warm, knife quick. A patrol sergeant shows up to collect his weekly envelope. He taps the window, and a blade comes down on his finger by accident, hard and true. He goes purple and shouts, and the baker's son cries fire. Guzik shows up with a doctor and a fresh roll of money. Finger stopped bleeding, and the sergeant keeps his post. By 27, the public name grows larger. Scarface in the papers, never in the room. He hates the word, figure. He tilts his face to the photographer so the left side shows more than the right. Says he got the mark in France, though the story sits in Coney Island. A woman's brother, a razored temper, a knight with cheap chin. He carries the past the way men carry keys. He keeps moving, always moving. He had rules on whispers. Never the wire, never the wall. He used runners with clean shoes who changed the path every Monday. He put numbers in the heads of men and burned slips after supper. He paid girls at the telegraph to forget they could read. He told one man once, talk less with your mouth and more with your eyes. Police captains met him in buffers. Restaurant, side room. He would pick a table by the window and face the door. He left his hat on the hook, the cornicello under the brim. He spoke in short lines and let Guzik do the math. A captain said thank you with a picture of his daughter and a note about a raid next Friday. The raid came, but the beer had moved. He loved baseball. White Sox, bleachers. He bought tickets in a bunch and sat with kids on summer days. Between innings, he shook hands with men who ran the gate. He smiled for the camera and kept the bottle out of sight. One day he told the kid to stay in school, and the kid nodded hard and forgot by dark. Northside boys kept breathing. They ran at him when they could. They shot up the Hawthorne again, and they broke glass for the thrill of it. He answered with money first, and then with men. Then came a winter morning in 1929, cold that cut fingers down to bone. A garage on Clark Street, poor roof with old beams, 7 men waiting for a truck. 2 cars pull up, and men walk in with coats and badges. Hands go to the wall, backs straight, guns heavy in the air. No words after that, just work. Shots ring and smoke sits, bodies fold, coats rumpled with dark wet. A German shepherd goes mad in the corner, and no one calms it. Frank Gusenberg bleeds and tells the cops nobody shot anyone. He dies fast and stays loyal to no one with a pen. Outside, the city hears a sound and turns the radio louder. Bugs Moran lives by luck. He was late by a block and a minute. He sees the cars and walks away, hat low and head full of fear he never admits. The papers scream for days, and the politicians open windows to let the stink out. Capone answers the phone in Florida and says he was eating oranges. No indictment on that one. But his name catches fire for good. After the garage, the theater changes. Public gets a taste they cannot spit out. Mamma mia. Church doors stay open late, and the men in City Hall stop smiling wide. Capone tries quiet, throws parties in Miami with jazz and slow fans. Chicago still feeds him, but the taxmen grow teeth. They read ledgers, they count. They say the word evasion with a taste for endings. Before the hammer, there were nights and dinners, men with charm, women with low voices. He sat at the Lexington Hotel, a block of brick with rooms that never cooled. He slept with a hand on the sheet and an ear full of hallway noise. He dreamt in English, he prayed in Italian. He woke to the smell of coffee and a man named Ralph in the hall. He did the rounds and said hello from the south side to the stockyards. He kept the city's rhythm like a drummer with no band. We returned for a minute to the little things. Bread on the table, towel by the stove. His barber, a Polish man, kept a towel over his face and would talk about rain. The barber heard more than most priests and threw the hair out the back door. In that time, a barber's chair held more secrets than a desk in the Loop. If the barber lived long, he did not brag. St. Joseph's Day ran warm even with winter. Families built tables with bread in shapes. Fava beans for luck, oranges for the saint, meatballs piled high for the men. Capone sent hams to churches and baskets with fruit to priests who never asked who sent them. Women crossed themselves slow and told their kids to eat before they spoke. Every faith in the city kept one eye on a clock and one ear on the street. He wore a St. Christopher medal on a thin chain. He tapped it before long drives out to Cicero. He told the driver, change the turn at the third light, not the second. He never took the same path twice in a week. He changed cars like socks and never smiled at a brand new face. All of it kept him breathing longer than most. The outfit, they call it. Never a name on paper. It was a way of business, not a club with a banner. It sat across races and neighborhoods and shook hands with anyone who brought a decent profit. It put pinchers on unions and slipped billfolds into election boxes. Whenever someone asked who's the boss, the answer got blurry. Whenever someone asked how many men with guns, the question died in a glass of beer. This was how it worked, how it lived. Little Italy around Taylor Street had rules. No one stole from a widow. No one raised a hand on Sunday. A man hit his wife once, slept outside his door for a week while his friends laughed and kept count. The baker sold bread at cost to a family with a father inside. They put salt over shoulders and said certain words before leaving the house. You go out with clean hands and come back with the same number. Amuni. The ground held all the stories and none of the names. A story about favors. A union man asked for help with a strike at the stockyards. Capone sends someone to hold a meeting with the foreman in a room full of light. Coffee comes out, cigars stay in pockets, voices drop, and the strike ends on a Wednesday. The men go back to work, the union man gets a heavy envelope, and the foreman receives a fancy one. Everybody wins, but nobody smiles on the walk home. A story about betrayal and the old country. Two boys from Palermo, cousins on their mother's sides, come to work as drivers. One talks too much. The other counts money with his fingers. Capone gives them a route and a quiet warning to keep their heads low. Soon the one with the mouth tells a street cop about an address with beer. A raid happens, and men spend a night on cold concrete. Next week, the talker is gone, and the quiet cousin gets moved to a bakery truck. In that line of life, talking was a kind of disease. They held wakes in houses, curtains closed, coffee on the stove. Cousins from Pullman would come in coats and hats and stay all night. Women baked overnight, and men sat straight with their hands on their knees. Capone sent flowers to men who were not his men and wrote notes on cards that said only, "with respect." Wives cried without screaming, and put coins in the hands that had done wrong. If a priest came, no questions were asked. The Jenna crew fades out and the north side grows thin. One by one, the names turn into dates on a stone. Jaime Weiss takes his last steps outside a church and never hits the second step down. Drucci gets it in a car with steel in the seat. Bugs fights time and time wins in the end. Capone keeps his core, the ones that could sit and keep their eyes down. Guzik stays strong. Nitti grows louder behind ledgers. Accardo watches every room like a cat. When a crew holds shape, the cash flows smooth. About the law, Figu. G-men, little hats. Later years bring Frank Wilson and men with pens and patience. They dig in ledgers from Cicero to the Loop. They pull receipts from diners that never broke a plate. They untie curtain and find stubs from a past summer in a jacket clinging to cheap wool. They build the case slow, and he feels the weight on the edges. Still, the 20s had music. A trumpet on State Street, a piano on Halsted, brothels with cold drinks and teacups and laughter that dropped when a badge walked in. Gamblers' rooms with green felt and smoke so thick a man could hide in it. Capone took a walk with a city alderman in a winter garden. Both men in fedoras and scarves. They spoke about zoning and about mercy. One asked for mercy for a cousin who ran a craps game above a grocery. There were rules of work. Don't shoot where the cameras can see. Don't keep liquor and books in one building. Don't bring strangers to Sunday dinner. Don't use a phone if you can walk a block instead. Don't pay the same cop twice unless he needs it to stay quiet. Every smart man kept his own code inside the bigger code. He had a soft spot for opera. A bass voice could stop him. He would sit quiet and drink slowly while a record spun. When a singer hit the low note, his eyes got soft and his hand went still. A man once tried to talk business during a duet and never made that mistake again. There had to be lines between noise and peace. They kept talismans in their pockets, saint cards, little bones. The driver named Sal kept the dried foot of a rabbit in a tin, wrapped in cloth. Another wore a ring turned inward so the eye saw no stones. A third carried his father's razor but never used it, only touched it before jobs. Superstition covered with planning mist. That was the thinking. One Wednesday in late summer, there's a meeting with a man from Detroit. Purple Gang connections, Lake Route chatter. They sit in a warehouse with a wall clock that runs 5 minutes fast. A deal makes with a handshake and a metal briefcase filled with cash. A kid named Joey carries the case to a car and sees 3 men on the corner he does not know. He points without pointing, and the drivers split. One car taking the long turn on Oakley. The 3 men end up standing alone, and their eyes get bored fast. The strange part was the city's double face, service and swing. There were mothers kneading dough and fathers in aprons. At the same hour, men carried shotguns on the coats on Clark Street. There were kids rolling hoops in alleys while drivers practiced quick turns with the lights off. A bishop blessed a new school as a truck down the block unloaded kegs into a basement. Everything ran together. until the man forgot there used to be a line. Even his enemies had rules. Bugs Moran did not touch cops if he could help it. He hated the South Side, and the South Side returned the sentiment. They had a way of leaving the women alone unless a woman was trouble. They dressed nice for each funeral and kissed the forehead of the dead. In those days, funerals were long, and respect was measured in cars and flowers. Now, about the Florida angle. Miami sun, linen suits. He liked to sit near the water and hold a cigar he never lit. Men came down to talk about races and casinos and the winter crowd. Chicago heat cooled when he crossed the state line. For a while. He got a big house, big wheels, big smiles from sheriffs with dry hands. He phoned back once a day and kept the wheels oiled. In Chicago, his brother Ralph kept kitchens full and gambling dens counting. Frank Nitti spent hours at a desk writing like a clerk. Ricardo stood by a door and learned to see trouble a block away. Guzik hosted men with coffee and forgot nothing by dawn. Every man had a piece, and every piece had a cost. This was not romance, Paisa. This was work. Capone visited a soup kitchen one day and gave good meat. He stood behind the counter and served a bowl to a man with no hat. A photographer captured the moment and the papers applauded. People ate and went home warm, and the city felt small and decent for a minute. That same night, someone beat a man in an alley near the river and took his role. Two truths can sit in one chair and never touch. He ran a quiet court on Tuesdays. Back room, short light. Boys stood in line with a problem and a chance to fix it. Some paid fines. Some lost a week's work. Some got told to go home and kiss their mother and never do it again. Rare ones got walked out and into a car and nothing got printed. No one asked for mercy twice. A mini-story of numbers and fate. A woman in Bronzeville ran a small policy game to keep her lights on. A stranger took her bank and her stash in one afternoon. Word reached the man on the south side and he sent the car. The bank came back and the woman made coffee for the men in the car. She paid a small tax and kept her business and her dignity. Protection was a service if you paid the price. Religion made a frame for it. Confession on Saturdays, tight-lipped and careful. Sins got measured like fruit, weighed and counted, some bruised, some fresh. Priests said the same words to everyone and kept their eyes on the cross. Men felt lighter and did the same thing the following week. No one called it a cycle. They called it life. Clothes held identity. Capone's suits came from a Jewish cutter who knew every inch of his shape. Hats from a shop that opened at dawn and shut early. Shoes that never squeaked, and belts that did not creak when he stood. He tipped the hat to older men and nodded to women and shook a child's hand with care. It cost him nothing to be mannered, and it bought him time. He did not forget Brooklyn roots. Stories of Navy Yard work, and a father with a barber's chair on Union Street. A mother who scrubbed stairs and cooked enough for the neighborhood. Brothers and a sister. Noisy dinner tables. Tight spaces. Hot summers with open windows and sour chests of drawers. He carried that into each restaurant, like a private badge. Money large, never cleaned an old memory. Scalise and Anselmi lost the boss's faith. They got too close to whispers with Detroit and maybe Moran. A banquet turned cold and a night turned long. Men sat at a table with red wine and small glasses of anisette. A hammer fell, and decisions fixed themselves in a minute. No one dug in gardens without good reason that spring. The city grew machine politics like weeds. Precinct captains who knew every stoop and every bottle. Payoffs stacked by war, deals made in church basements with men who took hats off and kept hands on envelopes. Capone understood politics better than some politicians, figure you. He kept his payroll thick with cops who needed their mortgages paid. He never starved a friend unless the friend did something stupid. This was how a city stayed oiled. At the end of the 20s, people grew nervous. Stock market talk, bank talk. Men in suits looked tired around the eyes, and housewives held receipts like they were prayers. Capone's money still moved, but the air changed. He felt it, like a draft in a room with no windows. He told the boys to save and kept some cash in walls. Old men always trusted the wall more than the bank. When the tax men started pulling threads, some friends turned thin. A bookkeeper made a deal. A waiter gave a look. A cousin's cousin said too much in a bar on a Wednesday. Capone said nothing and kept his jaw tight. He found out who talked and how much, and he set lines around them like fences. Life tightened, and the circle got smaller. A man only knows his real circle when a room grows cold. A letter to a judge arrived on a Thursday. Night paper, full of respect. It spoke of the family and of a boy who could not hear well. It asked for understanding and offered nothing but courtesy. The judge put it down and stared at the wall. The system did what it does and kept its head high. You can pay everything but a certain kind of pride. In the bars, they talked about him, the way men talk about weather. How long could it last? Which day would be the change? Barmen cleaned glasses and told stories of envelopes and cars, and a man who never lost his temper in public. Dockman remembered the night a crate fell open, and the smell of 1,000 illegal bottles made the night feel rich. Cops remembered a handshake that felt like a promise, with a year stamped on it. Everyone has a version, and none of them are the whole. He kept faith with silence. Omerta. Hard stone. It wasn't poetry, it was a fence around a life. He told boys to keep their mouths for food and prayers. He quoted old sayings about snakes and grass without joking. The trail smelled worse to him than cheap liquor spilling on a floor. There was a baker named Paolo who made sfincioni on Fridays. Thick crust, onions, anchovy. He baked late for the men who worked overnight moving crates by the river. One night he burned a whole tray because of a knock at the door. Two men asked for money he did not owe. Paolo gave them stale bread and a stare, and they left with less than they brought. Next week, a friend with a fedora sat by the oven, and no one knocked. Here's one about a driver and a saint. A man named Vito wore St. Anthony in a tiny cloth bag around his neck. He got in a wreck near the old yard. Truck on side, bottles like raindrops on the pavement. He crawled out with scratches and swore the saint pulled him by the collar. Capone sent a better truck and told him to take a week to fix his head. Vito came back on Monday smiling like a fool and never took the bag off again. There were few jokes, but some stuck. A cop said, "Why do you boys wear such nice suits?" Guzik said, "So we don't scare honest people in the elevator." They all laughed, and then no one laughed. And the elevator door opened and closed. Humor kept men from chewing their own tongues in a tense city. The last piece on the Clark Street garage. It did not end the war. It ended illusions for the public. Names do not protect anyone if the bullets are disciplined. Power feeds on fear until fear eats the power. After that day, even friendly judges looked at the clock when he walked in. This was Chicago in the 20s. Wide streets, narrow hearts. Money moved in little rivers and big trucks. Young men grew old before 30, and old men died with their shoes on. If you did not keep a rosary, you kept a ledger. If you didn't keep a ledger, you kept a pistol with oil on the slide. Everyone kept something in a drawer they never showed. Al Capone was not a ghost. He was a man who got up each day, chose a tie, and counted men and routes and cash. He gave and he took. He held and he cut. He feared betrayal. He worshiped silence. He valued loyalty the way a man values his hands. He wanted respect more than he wanted air. He got it and paid the price for getting it. You ask how it worked? It worked on envelopes and eyes. It worked on rituals from the old world and angles from the new. It worked on schedules, on charm, on rules you could not find on paper, and on pain. Capone pulled it together with presence and pressure and a little grace. That is an empire, Big U. Not the kind with flags, but the kind that lives in alleys and banquets and quiet offices. When you walk those streets today, the buildings say nothing. They never talk. The river keeps rolling, and the wind keeps cutting cheeks in winter. A few old men at coffee still nod when a certain name floats in like steam. They speak softly, and they do not share the end of the story. end is the same. For every man who thought the city loved him. He left a line behind. Not footsteps, not ink. Ways of doing that outlived the hats and the coats. Young men watched him then. And later men used those lessons without saying his name. An empire of action survives longer than an empire of speeches. Betrayal finds the loud. Silence protects the few. And honor is whatever a man keeps when the room turns against him.